Hello and welcome to this edition of Lake Orion Sports Update. I'm your host Joey Tysick, and even though there is still snow on the ground, the spring sports season has officially begun. We will bring the latest in girls soccer, lacrosse, and much more. The girls varsity soccer team started off their regular season by hosting a home game against the Troy Athens Redhawks on March 22nd. Each team scored one goal during the first half of the game, sending them into the second half with a tie at 1. It was in the second that the Dragons began to slip. The Redhawks made their way past Lake Orion's defenses and scored their second goal of the night. The Dragons could not pierce Athens' defense and lost the game 2-1. The game was a non-league matchup, so the Dragons' league record is still 0-0. Their overall record is now 0-1. Lake Orion will be preparing for their next game on April 10th against Notre Dame Prep. The boys lacrosse team opened up their 2018 season with an away game against Stony Creek on March 23rd. The Dragons took a while to warm up and had a hard time getting anything past the Cougars goalie. It wasn't until Sam Perillo and Peyton Gashi each earned a goal in the first quarter that Lake Orion got going. The momentum continued into the second quarter when senior Matt Billand earned a goal from his rebound in Lake Orion's zone. Later, teammate Hunter McCarty snatched the ball out of the air on a rebound and shot it into the Cougars' net, putting the Dragons 4 points ahead of Stony Creek. Near the end of the quarter, Peyton Gashi earned his second goal of the night, ending the first half with a 5-0 Dragon lead. At the beginning of the second half, Lake Orion captain Chris French scored his first 2 goals of the season. Shortly after, though, the Dragons' penalties began stacking up and were a man down for the majority of the third. Lake Orion's strong defense held up against Stony Creek's offensive attempts, keeping the Cougars at 0. The Dragons remained vigilant in the final quarter of game time. Nicolo Raffini, Chris French, Peyton Gashi, and Matt Billand each scored a goal, earning a 12-0 shutout win for Lake Orion. It was a great game for senior goalie Jack McLeod, who had 9 saves and held strong during the Dragons' penalties. It was also the first game with their new coach, Ron Hibbert. On March 24th, the Dragons held their home opener against Flint Powers. Unlike their previous game, Lake Orion's strong offense took control as soon as they entered the field, earning a 10-3 lead by the halftime break. The Dragons kept pushing in the second, earning 7 more goals, while keeping Flint to 2, winning the game 17-5. French was the leading scorer with 5 points. Not far behind was Gashi with 4. On March 26th, the girls lacrosse team traveled to Notre Dame Prep. In the first half, the Dragons outscored Notre Dame by 3, going into the second half with a 6-3 score. Notre Dame put more offensive pressure on Lake Orion in the second and outscored Lake Orion by 2. Due to the Dragons' heavy scoring in the first, they were able to sneak the 13-12 victory. Team captain Ali Lazara led the way with a whopping 8 goals. Allison Romansky had 3 goals herself. Aaron Humes and Aaron McGraw each contributed a goal of their own. Next up for the girls was a home game against Novi on March 28th. The Dragons were able to take home their 3rd victory of the young season with a final score of 15-9. Lazaro was once again the leading scorer with 6 points. McGraw and Humes each had 3 goals, Romansky earned 2 goals, and Mackey chipped in a goal of her own. The Dragon men and women's track teams have been training hard this past winter in the hopes of repeating as OAA Red champions. The women are coming into the 2018 season not only as defending OAA Red champions, but also regional champions. Their depth and experience will make them a tough out for any OAA opponent. The 2018 season kicked off Wednesday, March 28th, on the road at rival Clarkston's brand new track. Under chilly conditions, the Dragons were ready to go. The Dragons' strength in the field events was the story of the meet once again. The Lady Dragons piled on the points in the high jump and the discus, taking top honors in both events. The Clarkston women's team has one of the strongest distance units in the state of Michigan, and they scattered that talent all throughout the meet in hopes of avoiding 2 straight losses at the hands of LO, a feat the Lady Dragons have never accomplished in their history. The Wolves rolled to an easy win in the opening 4x800 meter relay, but Lady Dragons would bounce back, taking a 1-2 in the 110 hurdles, and winning the 100 meter dash. Junior Maddie Eaton and Melissa Simons both showcased why they are two of the most dynamic athletes in the OAAA, taking multiple wins on the night. This meet was back and forth all evening. Clarkston would make a statement in the 1600-meter run with a first and second place finish, and in the 3200-meter run, finishing 1, 2, 3. The Dragons would pull away with wins in the 200-meter dash, 300-meter hurdles, and the 800-meter run, which was won by freshman Sophie Novak in an impressive time of 2 minutes 16 seconds. In the end, the meet came down to just a couple of races and field events. The Lady Dragons win their second straight against the Wolves, 67-62 in a nail-biter. The Dragon men would have a little easier go of it. The relays were very competitive, and both LO and Clarkston traded wins all night long. The turning point for the Dragons came in the 1600-meter run, when junior Ryan Mulcahy and sophomore Andrew Nolan placed in the top 3 with impressive times. The hurdles have been a strong point for the LO men over the past 2 seasons, and this strength led to impressive wins in the 110 and 300-meter hurdles, led by senior Tyler Skibicki and junior Thomas Mormon. Again, the field events for LO would prove vital in the end. The Dragons take down Clarkston 74-52. Then the Dragon men's and women's track teams were in a rivalry meet on Wednesday, April 11th, as they hosted the Wildcats of Oxford for their second OAA Red dual meet of the season. How would both teams perform after their layoff for spring break? Well, both schools look in fine form and were ready to go. The Oxford men set the tone early with a 1-2 finish, not only in the long jump, but in the high jump as well, led by sophomore Trey Townsend's leap of 6 feet 1 inch. The Wildcats were out to a strong start, up 28-8 over the Dragons. However, Coach Ford's team didn't bat an eye, and through the remainder of the meet swept the relays 20-0 and pulled off a near sweep in the sprints. The Dragons would roll to a 76-52 win, moving to 2-0 on the season. The Lady Dragons, with their balance in all events, overpowered Oxford from the start. The Wildcats would outscore the Dragons in the sprint events, but only by 1 point. The Lady Dragons would sweep the relay events and take a near sweep in the distance events as well. Some highlight performances: Colleen Campbell was a double winner in the long jump and high jump. Melissa Simons also posted a double in the 100 and 300 meter hurdles. The Lady Dragons dominate the Wildcats 90-38, staying undefeated on the season. The Tri-County Invitational and a dual meet at Rochester High School are up next for the Dragons. With only 4 OAA dual meets, it's key to get off to a strong start. This win puts the Dragons in a good position for another OAA title. ONTV will bring all of the highlights and results as the track season rolls along. That's it for this episode of Lake Orion Sports Update. Tune in to the next episode for even more news from Lake Orion Athletics. See you next time.